At dinner, she told me, "My ex wants me back. Give me one good reason to stay." I replied, "Why should I?" Then I covered my share of the bill and walked away. A few days later, she showed up at my door, crying. At dinner, she told me, "My ex wants me back. Give me one good reason to stay." The restaurant was still humming around us. Low jazz, silverware clinking against porcelain, candlelight flickering against her cheekbones like nothing was wrong. She said it casually, as if she were asking me to pass the salt. For a moment I thought I misheard her. She didn't look guilty. She looked curious, evaluating, like I was a product on a shelf and she was comparing prices. "My ex says he's changed," she added, swirling her wine. "He wants another chance." The waiter arrived with the check at the exact moment my chest went cold. 3 years, late-night drives, meeting her parents, listening to her cry about that same ex, the one who never valued her. And now she was asking me to audition for my own relationship. Give me one good reason to stay. The candle between us flickered. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face as if I was seeing it for the first time, and quietly realizing I already had my answer. I've never been the loud one in the room. I'm the man people underestimate because I don't compete for attention. I build quietly. I observe. I remember. When I met her, she was still stitching herself back together from the wreckage her ex left behind. I was the steady one, the late-night listener, the patient driver, the man who showed up without being asked. She used to say I felt safe. At the time, I took that as a compliment. Now I realize it meant predictable. She liked that I never raised my voice, that I didn't make scenes, that I paid for dinners without hesitation, and fixed problems before they became visible. I made her life easier, calmer, stable, but stability isn't exciting. Not to someone addicted to chaos. Over time, I noticed the small shifts, the way she'd compare my reactions to his. "He would have fought harder," she once laughed, as if love were a boxing match. I didn't argue. I never do. What she mistook for weakness was restraint, and what she mistook for indifference was discipline. That night at dinner wasn't the first time she tested my value. It was just the first time I decided to stop proving it. Looking back, that dinner wasn't sudden. It was the final note in a song that had been playing for months. She started mentioning him more often, casually, strategically. He just got promoted. A pause. A glance at me. He always was ambitious. Or she'd leave her phone face up on the table when his name lit the screen, pretending not to notice while watching my reflection in the glass, waiting for a reaction. I gave her none. Once at a party, she told our friends, "He's too calm. I don't think he'd even fight for me if I left." She laughed when she said it. Everyone did. I smiled, sipped my drink, and memorized the sentence. There were smaller things. Cancelled plans because something came up. Dressing differently. When she said she was just meeting friends, the faintest trace of his cologne one. Evening when she hugged me, familiar because she'd once made me smell it in a department store, saying it reminded her of him. She was measuring me against a ghost. And every time I refused to compete, she pushed a little harder. That night at dinner, when she asked for one good reason, it wasn't a plea, it was a test. She expected me to fight. She never expected me to walk away. When she asked, "Give me one good reason to stay," I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not doubt, not confusion, control. She wasn't torn between two men. She was testing leverage. She wanted to see how badly I needed her, how far I would bend to keep her. And that's when something inside me went still. Not angry, not hurt, just clear. If someone needs convincing to choose you, they've already chosen someone else. The waiter placed the bill between us like a quiet referee. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded, waiting for my speech. Waiting for passion, for desperation, for proof. Instead, I reached for the check. "I won't compete," I said calmly. "If you're unsure, you're free." Her eyebrows twitched, just slightly. That wasn't the script she expected. I paid my half, not hers. That detail mattered. As I stood up, she finally spoke. "That's it? You're not even going to try?" I looked at her the way you look at a closed chapter. "Why should I?" I replied, and I walked out of the restaurant feeling something I hadn't felt in months, respect for myself. I didn't block her. I didn't post cryptic quotes. I didn't ask mutual friends what she was doing. Silence is more unsettling than anger. The morning after that dinner, I did something far less dramatic and far more important. I reorganized my life. We weren't married, but we had intertwined more than she realized. I'd helped her launch her small online business 2 years. Earlier, built the website, structured vendor contracts, negotiated supplier discounts under my consulting LLC. Everything clean, everything documented. At the time, she'd said, "Just put it in your name for now. It's easier." I had Not out of control, out of efficiency. I called my accountant first, then my attorney, a man who speaks in bullet points and never wastes words. We reviewed every agreement, every shared subscription, every financial tie. There was nothing illegal, nothing unethical, just ownership. I withdrew quietly. Access permissions changed. Vendor contracts were reassigned back to standard rates. Marketing campaigns paused. No announcements, no threats, just boundaries formalized. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's simply the removal of unearned privilege. And I knew she would notice soon enough. She noticed 3 days later. I know because that's when she showed up at my door. But before that, the consequences unfolded exactly as expected. Her independent business suddenly stopped running smoothly. The automated ads went dark. Supplier invoices returned to full price. The shipping dashboard she never learned to operate locked. Her out after the permissions transfer. She texted once, "Hey, something's wrong with the site." I didn't respond. Another message, "Did you change anything?" Still silence. By the second day, her tone shifted. Shorter sentences, no emojis. Meanwhile, I went to work, went to the gym, slept peacefully for the first time in months. There's a calm that comes from knowing you didn't raise your voice. You just stepped back. On the third evening, the knock came. Soft at first, then urgent. When I opened the door, she wasn't composed. No calculated glances, no testing tone. Her eyes were red. Her voice shook. "I didn't think you'd actually leave." That was the moment it settled fully. She never believed I would choose myself, and that belief had cost her everything she took for granted. She tried to explain it away at first. "It was just a question," she said at my doorstep. Arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. I needed reassurance, but word travels quietly in shared circles. Mutual friends began reaching out, not to defend her, but to ask what happened. She told them I overreacted, that I was emotionally unavailable. What she didn't tell them was that her business stalled the same week I walked away, or that suppliers suddenly required upfront payments she couldn't float, or that the ex she'd romanticized wasn't interested in rebuilding anything. He liked the chase, not the responsibility. One by one, people started noticing patterns. Not mine, hers. A close friend pulled me aside days later. "You were always the stable one," he said. She didn't realize that stability is a choice. The stakes were never about the restaurant bill or the website. They were about value. When you allow someone to question your worth publicly, you train them to do it privately. When you stay after being asked to prove yourself, you accept the audition. Why should anyone care? Because self-respect compounds the same way humiliation does, quietly, over time. And the moment you decide to stop negotiating your value is the moment the room shifts. A few weeks after she stood at my door crying, the knocking stopped. Not because she understood at first, but because she ran out of leverage. I didn't hate her. That's the part people expect to hear. They expect bitterness or a dramatic reconciliation. But what I felt instead was clarity. She didn't betray me in one moment at dinner. She revealed herself over time, and I finally chose to see it. I restored my routines, expanded my consulting work, took on 2 new clients, both referrals from people who'd quietly watched how I handled the situation. Reputation isn't built in arguments, it's built in composure. Sometimes I think about that question she asked. Give me one good reason to stay. The truth is, the right person never asks for a reason to choose you. They just do. If she ever loved me, she loved the version that carried her weight without complaint. But I've learned something more valuable than loyalty. Discernment. The future feels lighter now, cleaner. Because walking away wasn't revenge. It was alignment. And the day I stopped competing was the day I won.